The idea of keeping cash in the bank is not as fashionable and smart as we think it is. This might sound odd, but wait till you hear what renowned financial expert Robert Kiyosaki has to say about it. The phrase, "savers are losers," is perhaps one of the most popular quotes from Robert Kiyosaki, the author of the best-selling book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The financial guru often regards money kept in the bank as useless because it's just stored and barely has any value. He believes it's better to acquire assets like gold, silver, or cryptocurrency rather than leave them in the bank with the intention of keeping it safe. Many people believe it's perfectly fine to keep a portion of your earnings in a savings account. So, what are the reasons behind Kiyosaki's directly opposite opinions? Before going on, I must clarify that the terms save and invest don't mean the same thing in this context. Some might argue that investment is a form of saving. But when Kiyosaki talks about savers, he is referring to those who leave their money in the bank, not those who invest their cash. So, why exactly does Kiyosaki think that savers are losers? The first and obvious reason is the high inflation rates. The value of money is constantly depreciating because inflation rates are constantly increasing. Inflation simply means an increase in the general price level of goods and services over a period within an economy. To further understand how inflation affects the value of your money, let's check out this scenario. You once got a product for $1.50, and a few months down the line, you now have to pay $3 to acquire the same good. Basically, this suggests that the $3 you had a few months ago is way more valuable than the $3 you now have. Several factors can lead to inflation, including an increase in the demand in circulation, a decrease in the supply of goods and services, or an increase in demand. It doesn't matter what triggers the inflation. Money quickly loses value once the economy experiences it. So, $1,000 wouldn't offer the value it used to have. But it gets even worse for savers. Robert Kiyosaki recently revealed that the inflation rate provided by the government is totally different from the actual rate. For instance, the official inflation rate for the US in 2022 was 7%, but according to Kiyosaki, it was actually 16%. With such a disparity in value, savers would be losing so much money without even actually knowing it. But if you still have doubts about the disadvantages of saving, here's another reason Kiyosaki mentions: the insane debts of the United States. As of July 2023, the U.S. public debt was around $32.61 trillion, which was over $2 trillion more than a year earlier, when it was just about $30.6 trillion. Such a high amount of debt poses a serious threat to the financial and economic structure of the economy. And for savers, it presents several long-term risks. One of the dangers is that the government would have to divert more tax dollars to the servicing of the national debt, and this could affect the standard of living in the country. Once the standard of living is affected, there's a chance this could also affect the amount of income earned, which would in turn lead to reduced spending, decreased economic activity, and the peak of it all would be an economic recession. When a recession occurs, there's a long period of temporary economic decline during which trade and industrial activity are reduced. Although, during a recession, things would most likely be cheaper, as nobody has enough to spend flamboyantly. But savers are still not ahead of the curve. Why is it still this way for savers? For starters, the banks or other financial institutions where a saver's money is kept could suffer significant losses, and they would have to cut some costs to remain afloat. In some banks, they pay some interest to a savings account after investing the money on their behalf. However, if a bank is going through difficult times, there won't be room for extra money, and they would have to pull in all the funds they have. So, if you kept $1,000 in the bank, you'd find your money exactly how you left it. However, your contemporaries who had gone down the smarter path and invested their funds could be gaining as much as $200 in a month in the form of dividends. Besides the debt, there's also the high interest rates. When the rate of inflation skyrocketed, the Federal Reserve began researching effective ways to curb it and improve the economy. Unfortunately, the method they decided to swing with only made things very bad, and that is high interest rates. Usually, many people find it difficult to borrow money from financial institutions due to the insanely high interest rates. These interest rates, in turn, will prevent more people from borrowing from financial institutions. It's believed that the higher the interest rate, the lower the rate of inflation, because there would be less money in circulation. However, it's not a very efficient method of reducing inflation, because it only makes the national debt more expensive, which could also result in a recession. We all know what recession means for savers. So rather than save your money in a bank, it might be a better idea to invest in profitable businesses that would keep bringing in profit, no matter the state of the economy. If you have picked one or two lessons on how to be financially smart, then this video must have provided some sort of value. Keep watching so you don't miss out on more effective financial tips. Another reason why saving in the bank is a bad idea is due to a factor known as economic imbalances. Currently, the margin between the wealthy and the poor is very wide. The bulk of the country's wealth is concentrated among a certain group of people, and the rest are left to scramble for bits. This distance leads to an increase in economic instability and insecurity. When just a few people have enough resources to do as they please, those on the other side of the table would have to reduce their cost of spending because they have less disposable income. Did you know that there's a direct connection between your income and your savings? If a household experiences low income growth due to economic inconsistencies or imbalance, their saving rates instantly drops, which in turn could lead to vulnerability and higher levels of debt. Most times, those who save a lot find themselves on the lower end of the wealth chart because their money isn't working for them. However, those who invest and acquire assets like gold, Bitcoin, and silver would not only manage to stay afloat during a recession, but also be able to consistently build wealth over a long or short period of time. To further emphasize that savings is not always the best direction, Robert Kiyosaki highlights another important fact: external shocks. Have you ever planned out an entire week of your life only to have one event change everything? Or have you had to change the direction of your life because of some random, unpredictable event? Just like humans, several unforeseen circumstances could affect the state of the economy. One day, everything could be going fine, and the next, a crash in market prices could change the entire direction of an economy. More often than not, this could be due to external factors like war, pandemics, or not-so-subtle conflicts between nations. For example, the war between Russia and Ukraine has seriously affected the economy of both countries. Those that rely on either of the country's supplies would also face serious consequences. Because these economic shocks are not anticipated, it could affect the value of a currency, a factor which immediately puts savers at the risk of devaluation. It's a no-brainer that these factors could also mean that the initial value of your money will not only reduce, but also put your financial future at risk. So, now that we've discussed why it's really not smart to save in a bank, let's check out what lies on the other side of the grass. What exactly should you do with your money? The simple answer: invest. Everyone is familiar with how investment works, depending on the investment options you decide to go with. While investing your money is a good move, it's very important that you take the time to properly research any investment plan before you put your money in it. You have to decide which sector or company you would like to invest in, what sort of investment plan you have in mind, and how long you want to wait before you start bringing in the profit. Are you looking for short-term investment plans? Whatever you decide, you must remember that research is an important part of the process. If investing in companies sounds like a tedious job, you could earn money through Kiyosaki's favorite method. Kiyosaki believes the best way to keep money safe is by acquiring what he refers to as God's money, which is gold and silver. The financial guru explains that not only is silver becoming rarer, it is also the best investment value today, adding that he does not buy gold or silver exchange-traded funds, ETFs, but only real silver or gold coins. In fact, he agreed 100% with the CEO of Miles Franklin Precious Metals, Andy Schechtman, who once said that silver is the most undervalued asset of a generation. Kiyosaki's got a wild trio of investments up his sleeve: silver, gold, and Bitcoin. According to him, they're the must-have assets for turbulent times. In February, he declared that by 2025, gold would hit a crazy price of $5,000, silver would hit the $500 mark, and Bitcoin would rocket to an astonishing $500,000. Why, you ask? Well, because he's convinced that the US dollar, which he hilariously calls fake money, is headed for a date with destruction. The simple policy is just for you to acquire a reliable asset that would keep bringing in profits. However, you must understand that asset acquisition and investments come with a certain level of risks. But come on, it's not something that cannot be managed. Remember that intensive research should be done and the assets should be acquired from reliable sources to ensure maximum safety. Saving isn't entirely bad. We've got to save money for the right reasons. But if you're intentional about building wealth, then it's definitely not the path you should follow. Like and follow us for more.